German tanks reached the outskirts of Leningrad before the final drive on Moscow had even begun. But on September 22nd, a secret German directive turned a stalled advance into a policy of destruction. Leningrad would not be occupied. Its surrender would not be accepted. The city would be sealed, bombarded, and left to starve. Yet this was not the plan Army Group North had carried across the Soviet border. How did an operation intended to capture Leningrad in weeks become an 872-day siege? When Operation Barbarossa began on June 22, 1941, Army Group North was ordered to advance through the Baltic states and eliminate Leningrad. The city was a major industrial center, the base of the Soviet Baltic Fleet, and the symbolic birthplace of the Bolshevik Revolution. Its capture would secure Germany's northern flank and allow German forces to link with Finland. If Leningrad fell quickly, divisions could be released while the invasion still had momentum. At first, the timetable appeared realistic. German armored columns crossed the Dvina River and raced through Soviet defenses that were still struggling to organize. Pskov fell on July 9th after the Germans had advanced hundreds of kilometers in less than 3 weeks. Leningrad was suddenly within reach, but rapid movement had created a dangerous illusion. The tanks were moving faster than the infantry, artillery, fuel, and supplies needed to sustain them. Between the Germans and the city stood the Luga River. Soviet soldiers, militia units, and civilians were hurriedly constructing a defensive line across forests, marshes, and narrow roads. The positions were incomplete, but the terrain forced German armor into predictable routes. When the advance struck the line on July 10th, its pace immediately slowed. 4 days later, near Soltsy, a Soviet counterattack struck the exposed flanks of the 8th Panzer Division and temporarily surrounded much of it. The division escaped, but only after retreating roughly 40 kilometers. Soltsy did not reverse the campaign. It revealed its growing weakness. The German spearheads could break Soviet formations, but they could not keep advancing while their supporting units remained far behind. The drive toward Leningrad paused as commanders reorganized and waited for the infantry. Every day the Germans lost became another day for the Soviets to deepen their defenses, raise new units, and evacuate part of the civilian population. The Luga position was eventually broken, and the offensive resumed in August. German forces pushed around Leningrad from the south and severed its main railway connections. To the north, Finnish troops recovered much of the territory lost in the Winter War, advancing to, or in some places beyond, the old frontier. But Finland would not participate in a direct assault on Leningrad. The Germans would have to close the remaining land corridor themselves. At the same moment, Hitler's priorities were changing. Operation Barbarossa was falling behind schedule, and the offensive against Moscow demanded fresh mobile forces. On September 6th, Hitler ordered preparations for key armored and air formations in the north to be reassigned once Leningrad had been isolated. Army Group North was expected to seal the city without consuming the forces Germany now needed elsewhere. The opportunity for a rapid conquest was narrowing. On September 8th, German troops captured Schlüsselburg on the southern shore of Lake Ladoga. The last land connection between Leningrad and the rest of the Soviet Union was cut. The siege had begun. The encirclement was not completely airtight, because boats could still cross Lake Ladoga. But every road and railway into the city was now blocked. The lake route was limited, vulnerable to attack, and soon threatened by winter. From that moment, the food inside Leningrad became a measure of time. The Germans were close enough to bombard the city, but they had not reached an undefended prize. Fortifications, naval guns, fresh troops, and armed workers guarded the approaches. As German armor entered the suburbs, the space available for maneuver disappeared. Georgy Zhukov arrived in September to reorganize the defense at the moment of greatest danger. German attacks gained ground, but casualties increased. Taking Leningrad now meant fighting through prepared positions in a vast urban area, while the best mobile formations were being demanded from Moscow. Military conditions therefore explain why Leningrad was not captured quickly. They do not fully explain what happened next. A conventional siege might have attempted to force the city's surrender. The German leadership chose something different. A directive dated September 22nd stated that Hitler had decided to destroy Leningrad through blockade, artillery fire, and aerial bombardment. Germany would not accept responsibility for feeding its population. Any offer of capitulation was to be rejected. An order issued on October 7th repeated that neither Leningrad nor Moscow was to be allowed to surrender. German soldiers were not to enter the cities, and civilians attempting to approach German lines were to be driven back by fire. Starvation was no longer merely a possible consequence of the campaign. It had become an authorized method of war. That decision belonged to the wider Nazi war of annihilation in the Soviet Union. German planners had already expected millions of civilians to die as food was diverted to German forces and the Reich. At Leningrad, the same policy could operate without an occupation. The city could be contained, bombarded, and denied supplies while German troops avoided a costly street battle. Operational convenience and ideological policy now reinforced each other. A failed attempt at rapid conquest had been transformed into a deliberate effort to destroy the population. The consequences arrived with the winter. German bombing destroyed warehouses and part of the city's already limited food reserves, while the blockade prevented replacements from arriving in sufficient quantities. Evacuation and rationing had begun too late to prevent catastrophe. In November, industrial workers received only 250 grams of bread per day. Children, dependents, and many office workers received 125 grams. Even that bread contained substitutes added to stretch the remaining flour. Water systems failed. Public transport stopped. People weakened by hunger faced temperatures far below freezing. Death no longer came only from bombs and artillery. It came inside apartments, factories, and frozen streets. The siege had turned daily survival into a calculation of calories, fuel, and physical strength. But the blockade never became completely airtight. Barges crossed Lake Ladoga before the ice formed. When the surface froze, trucks began moving over what became known as the Road of Life. The route could provide only a fraction of what Leningrad required, but it carried food into the city and evacuated civilians in the opposite direction. When German forces captured Tikhvin in November, they threatened the railway supporting this lifeline. A Soviet counteroffensive retook the town on December 9th, preserving the route during the worst months of the crisis. Leningrad survived the winter, but survival did not mean relief. Soviet forces opened a narrow land corridor in January 1943. The siege was not fully lifted until January 27, 1944, 872 days after the land route was cut. Germany had achieved a real operational result in 1941. Leningrad was isolated, much of the Baltic fleet was contained, and large Soviet forces remained tied to the city's defense. But Germany also committed divisions and artillery to a static front without capturing its objective. The Soviets denied Hitler a major political and strategic prize, but the cost was catastrophic. Estimates of civilian deaths range from more than 600,000 to roughly 1 million, overwhelmingly from hunger and cold. Hitler's armies had reached Leningrad's defenses, not an assured victory. Soviet resistance, difficult terrain, strained logistics, and the transfer of forces toward Moscow had made a rapid conquest increasingly unlikely. But the failure to capture the city did not make mass starvation inevitable. That required another decision. Unable to take Leningrad quickly, Nazi Germany turned military delay into policy and starvation into strategy.